welcome back to Pour Temecula. We've been gone for a while, but I'm Rick DeLucio, and
I'm Shannon Cole.
And we are your Pour Temecula team, covering everything beer, beverage, wine related for Temecula Valley. So we took a little bit of a break, but we're back. We're back today. We're going to go over some Spanish varietals that are grown here in Temecula Valley. But as always, first, Shannon, what have you been drinking?
Since November, I've been drinking a lot, but
Did you mean just a lot? Period?
No, sorry, not. I've been drinking a lot of different things. Not a lot. I have actually been doing a lot of Spanish wine tasting lately, which is fitting for this episode. I'm in the process of planning a Spanish wine dinner for 2 travelers. So I've been tasting lots of Albariño, Tempranillo, and some other fun stuff. So,
has anything impressed you? And also, have you discovered anything that is new to you that you really have enjoyed?
So something really interesting, blind tasting Albariño for me, and I will throw my wine tasting group in here too, is really difficult. I don't know why. It just tastes so different every time we have one. And I haven't really been able to narrow down what makes Albariño taste like Albariño, because a lot of people say it has the sea spray notes, but sometimes so does Pinot Grigio. And I don't know, it's been a difficult one to blind taste. And the other day I did a tasting with a distributor, and he brought 4 different Albariño in. Every single one of them tasted different. And we were talking about about blind tasting, and he gave me this little hint. He's like, next time you blind taste, look for a sour candy note, no matter how ripe or tart the fruit is. He was like, I always get this little sour candied note. And so I'm going to look out for that.
Okay, I actually am a Albariño ambassador, so I can answer some of that. Number one, the tasting note that I get is a salty lime margarita. That's a little sour. So if you're it's sort of a unique Albariño character, I think, that salinity along with the kind of lime in the margarita, the lemon lime. But to the point about it always tasting different, is a little unknown thing is that Albariño in Spain, it all sounds like it comes from the same area, but there are a lot of microclimates that influence, as well as production styles that influence the way that it tastes. Your larger production houses, they will be more candied in nature. So you will have more of that limey margarita saltiness to it. But when you have micro producers or producers that are kind of like developing and working in their own terroir, it'll not even be like that. It'll be like more linear and more like Riesling, a lot more like Riesling, like dry German Riesling from that sense. And also there are a number of producers in Spain that production doesn't end up being distributed here in the States because there isn't a big quantity, number one, and that's just not enough to distribute. There's a lot of people doing stuff with oak barrels and aging in different like cement tanks and things like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole wide world of Albariño, and we only see a sliver of it over here in the United States. I think it was about a year or 2 years ago, I got invited, the Ria Spicious Association invited me to an Albariño tasting, and there was probably 50 different Albariños, including sparkling Albariños and things like that. And it was very fascinating and very eye-opening to see the different styles, even from the same producer.
Yeah.
And the quality level, too. So the quality level moves up. It becomes more ageable. We had some older ones, 12, 15-year-old Albariños that were it did remind me of aged Riesling.
Oh, wow.
So, there's just a whole wide world. And then, of course, Albariños grown here in the United States, especially California, are going to be much more tropical and more of that kind of like sour candy note, I think, at least the ones I've had. And I think more aromatic, too, coming from the States.
Yeah.
It's not the most aromatic grape.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about in a little bit. Anyway, for myself, what I've been drinking, I haven't been drinking a lot of wine. I know the wine industry doesn't want to hear that right now, but at the end of last year, I started going through like some cocktails that I had never had before. And the cocktail, and I'm doing air quotes here, of 2025 was called the Paper Plane. I've
never had one. I'm very familiar
You've heard
with
of it, though.
but
I've heard of it, too, but I've never had one. So in the process of doing that, I was like, okay, I need to make a paper plane, which means that I generally had to go out and buy a few of the ingredients that were part of it. So at the beginning of the year, actually not the 1st, but on January 2nd, I made the paper plane cocktail. And then that sort of transformed into, hey, how about every day I make a different cocktail? So every day this year, I've made it an entirely new and different cocktail, either new to me. That is one of these things that you've heard of, like a riff off of the paper plane. It's called the Naked and Famous. And I'd never had that one either. But the next day I made the Naked and Famous. And so every day is kind of snowballed into like making a new cocktail. And I've really gotten into it. I've tried to invent my own cocktails. I made one called Wakey Eggs and Bakey. That was bacon, bourbon infused, along with egg white, so for the foam. And then I also did some bits of bacon into it, and it was with coffee. So it was like a really messed up coffee bacon espresso with some egg white.
It's like a brunch cocktail.
It was a brunch cocktail. It's actually it was a riff off of a breakfast brunch cocktail. I think it was called the breakfast brunch cocktail. That's something out there. So every day's kind of done that. It's even gotten so bad. I've gotten so bad with it now. I'm starting to infuse different things to make, like, I made my own banana liqueur out of rum and some like darker, the amber color sugars that go in. And I melted that down and made a simple syrup. I made like grapefruit simple syrup. Just yesterday, I didn't have eucalyptus, but I infused some water with some rosemary and mint to kind of mimic it and put that into a cocktail, into a tropical inspired cocktail. So I'm just going nuts with it.
So you've not done dry January?
I did. Well, no, I did not do dry January. I don't subscribe to that. And another one I discovered, and I absolutely love this now, is the Pimm's Cup. I never had a Pimm's Cup before. That is the drink of Wimbledon. Oh. And it's the simplest thing. It's just Pimm's, and then you put some Sprite on top of it and some crushed ice. It's really, really refreshing. And I do like that one. That's usually now that I discovered if I want another drink, and because Pimm's is already kind of a lower alcohol liqueur, you're further diluting it down with like club soda or Sprite or whatever else, 7-Up, if you want to put that on there, and you're having a lower ABV drink than say like a Manhattan, which is like straight alcohol, or an old fashioned. So that's been nice to kind of have that. So that's what I've been drinking. Okay, so let's just get into this. Today we are actually at Raúl Ramirez, and if you've never been here before, it's a little bit separated from the rest of the wineries in Temecula. It's closer to Lake Skinner than I think most of the wineries are. And if you were to go past Dofo and Chapin I forget what road this is, and keep going about 4 or 5 miles, you're going to come across Raúl Ramirez, which sits atop a hill. It's about 20 acres here. They have Aleutian or Andalusian.
Oh.
No. They have horses here, and about 15 to 17 of the acres are devoted to vineyards. And then I was told that they have another, did they say 70?
70, yeah.
Another 70 acres of planted vines over by Peltzer and Julie's Dream. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of wine. They are entirely devoted to Spanish varietals, white and black grapes, as well as Spanish style wines. I think they do classify some of their wines as reservas and Gran reservas, and they even have a sparkling wine that we are drinking right now that is done in the Cava style.
It's also really beautiful here. They're kind of up on a hill, so like 360-degree beautiful views.
So we're going to be told about this wine in a little bit, but first we want to go into the 3 grapes that make up this, a traditional Cava-styled Cava. In this case, it's Xarel-lo, Macabeo, and Parellada. So each of those are white grapes. Xarel-lo is probably, I would say Macabeo is the most known, and that's also known as Vieira. You see that grown in Rioja and Catalonia. Flavors of apple, citrus, floral, medium acidity, and it gets notes of honey. It's a really good grape to start with Cava as your base because it's considered a neutral grape, as in it's not very aromatic. It can age. It doesn't give a lot of flavor. And as it ages, it can develop the certain flavors that you want it to in a Cava or sparkling style wine, similar to Chardonnay. So you get more of that like brioche notes and toasted notes and cream and hazelnut, all those kind of things. So what else? Tell us about Xarel-lo.
So Xarel-lo is grown in Catalonia. It is one of the key grapes in Cava. It's got a lot of characteristics of lemon peel, some herbal notes, really strong acidity, very good structural backbone. So again, with that acidity, it makes a really good sparkling wine. But they also can make structured still wines out of it.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of either this or, well, to be blunt, we only see it at Raúl Ramirez, where they have these three varietals, Xarel-lo and Viera or Macabeo, and then the Parellada.
Yeah, I don't think I've had any of these three grapes on their own.
Well, that would be surprising, only because you're doing Spanish tasting. For Viera, you haven't had a 100% Viera?
No, not yet.
What about, a lot of times you do see with Spanish whites, they're like 85% Macabeo and 15% or 10% of like Garnacha Blanca, which we'll talk about soon, or usually not Xarel-lo, because it's more Xarel-lo and Parellada, I believe, are more coastal grown than anywhere else. All right, so we have in front of us 2016 Estate Gran Reserva Brut Cava style sparkling wine from Raúl Ramirez. Well, actually, we'll let them tell us a little bit about them and what we can expect. All right, we are back with Marianne for Raúl Ramirez. Do you first want to tell us a little bit about Raúl Ramirez, and then you can talk to us about what we're tasting?
Well, Raúl Ramirez is from Querétaro, Mexico, and he wanted to open up a vineyard out here when he started buying properties in the early 2000s. So he wanted to just stay with Spanish varietals. So he has brought his vines in from Spain, and the majority is grown on Calle Contento, but we have about 17 to 20 acres here of additional vines.
And how long have you been here for?
I'm here almost 2 years.
Well, how long has Raúl Ramirez been here for?
Raúl Ramirez as the tasting room?
Yeah, well, the tasting room, I think, opened just kind of like post-COVID, right? Like 2020, 2021?
He opened as to the public, but he's been at vineyards growing. We have grapes from 2008, our bottles.
Okay, so for about 20 years then, 2 decades.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we tasting here with this?
So you are trying the 2016 Cava. So this is made with the three traditional grapes that are in Cava, the Macabeo, Xarel-lo, and the Varietale grape. So Raúl wanted to do it in the Mediterranean Spanish style, the method, the champenois. So that's what we do here with this one.
And as you told me earlier, the grapes are from here on the estate,
yes,
but they are then trucked up, they're treated the way they need to be treated, and then taken up north.
Just for the Cava,
just for the production, because there's one thing that we don't do a lot of here, and that's actual traditional style sparkling production. It's more equipment and more cost that just isn't all that much of.
So it is cost on us to send it up there, but in order to have it it tasting the way that it does and to have it the traditional way, we send it up there for that.
Yeah, excellent. We tasted this a little bit before, and the first thing I love is I love the aged notes that are in the nose. You get the brioche, and it's fairly aromatic too.
Yeah,
and still fresh. There's still a freshness to it overall that you wouldn't think, oh, this is so old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has that orange blossom and green apple fresh notes from that. Yep.
Yeah, it's solid. It's very good. I don't know if this was the vintage I had before, but it's been a couple years. I had a different vintage, and I really enjoyed it.
2015 that only has the Macabeo and Xarel-lo.
Ah, okay. And you told me earlier the Parellada is difficult to grow here.
Yeah, so we didn't have it in that particular year, so he grew more. So in our 2019, we'll have the three traditional grapes, but the 2015 is still really good with the Macabeo and Xarel-lo.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. We're talking about it's most definitely is the white varietal you will find most typical here in Temecula from a Spanish varietal point of view is going to be Albariño. And it's primarily from the coastal area, Rías Baixas in Galicia in northwest Spain. A lot of cool coastal Atlantic influence, get a lot of storms there, so it has to have good draining soil. They actually historically have grown them on pergolas up above because to keep the water, to keep the vines dry. And then the Galician farmers would do different crops underneath it that could handle the shade or need some more shade. But here locally has really thick skins. It's a mostly aromatic grape. It has a lot of citrus, white peach, some salinity, if I can get that out right. It's usually bright and crisp, but there are also a bit of a texture to it, I find sometimes, like an oily texture, kind of like Viñedos. Mm-hmm. And I have seen it actually paired up and mixed together with Viñedos before, because the Viñedos adds a little bit more texture and weight and nuance to it than that sometimes Albariño needs. Typically done in stainless steel. You do see a little bit done in oak. And today we're going to be tasting the Raúl Ramirez Estate Albariño from 2022 that we were told had been finished in oak. So we're going to see how that's going to be. But before we get to that, Shannon, why don't you tell us all about Garnacha Blanca?
So Garnacha Blanca, also known as Grenache, Grenache Blanc. It's grown in Aragon and Catalonia in northeast Spain, and also southern Rhone as Grenache Blanc. It's a kind of medium to full-bodied white wine with a lot of notes of pear, apple, fennel, sometimes almond. It's full-bodied and medium to full-bodied because it has that kind of waxy texture to it, and some moderate acidity. And winemaking, they often use neutral oak or concrete. Also, they'll do some lees aging to add texture. And a fun fact, I mentioned Garnacha or Grenache. It's a mutation of the red Garnacha. And
forgot to add, for Albariño, you like the food pair. So what kind of food pairings would you give the Albariño?
I would do some sort of like sushi, raw fish, oysters, ceviche.
I love
so that's a good, ceviche would be really good. Off the top of my head, I'm going to regret saying this because I can't remember what's on it, but You and I Sushi has a Mexican roll. And for some reason, that comes to mind with Albariño, but I couldn't tell you what was on it.
Maybe a little bit of like cilantro might be in that, and maybe that plays really well with Albariño. And then what about Grenache Blanc?
Garnacha Blanca. I would do any sort of like seafood pasta, maybe any pasta with kind of a creamy, buttery sauce. Anything you would serve, I think, with a Chardonnay, I think would fit with this wine. So you could do roast chicken, would be a good Thanksgiving wine on your table.
All right. So like I said, we have the Estate Albariño from 2022. So it's got about 3 years of age on it, and was also had spent a little bit of time in oak. So we're going to try and taste that right now and give you some feedback. Okay, so the first thing I noticed with this is just aromatically, does have that sort of hazelnut, oaky, buttery, creamy, not overtly so. It's not over the top like a stereotypical California Chardonnay, but you get those undertones of it, especially the toasty kind of like wood.
Yeah, and the texture too, and the color.
The texture, it's a little more golden, although I do find that the Albariños from California are a little bit more golden. I think it's from the skins being a little bit tougher here and warmer and having to deal with the grapes that I personally have made wine from in Albariño get a little bit sunburned in the summertime. Even though they're thicker skin, they are prone to sunburn, in my opinion. And so you get a little bit more of a kind of like a golden color, maybe I would say this has, than say like the Rías Baixas ones can range. They can be golden in color, or they could be really pale in color, kind of like Riesling.
Yeah, this would be one I would definitely serve with like a creamy pasta.
Yeah, I think it needs food to kind of show it the most potential in it. But looking at a bottle, it says it has grapefruit and lemon peel, a little bit of nectarine, like lemon oil. All those kind of things are in it. And the acidity is there, but it's a little toned down, I think, from the wood impact on that. But all in all, I think pretty solid. I still love the Brut Cava we just tasted. That was delicious.
Yeah, the Cava was delicious.
All right, moving on. We have the 2 Vs. We have 3 more wine, 3 more varietals that are grown here. Oh, and we should mention that as far as Albariño goes, I mentioned that you will find this in a number of places in the valley. Raúl Ramirez, of course, Miramonte, Euro Village, Chapin, Danza, Peltzer, and Wiens all have an Albariño, all have recently had an Albariño. Just because it might be out of season right now, like the 2024s might have been sold out, so you may not be able to get it just yet. So the 2025s, those would probably be coming on the shelves and in tasting rooms. I would say mid to late spring would be about right.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if Mesilla de la Viña is going to make one again, but I actually have a bottle of theirs at home from a couple years ago. Actually, more than a couple. It was probably like a 2018.
Yeah, as we stated before when we did the Italian wines episode, if you don't put it on the website, we don't know if you've had it or not. If you've had it in the past, are you going to have it in the future, or you have it currently because, well, you don't put it on there, so put it on there. And then from Garnacha Blanca, this is not many producers have it. I'm not even sure that here at Raúl Ramirez has one, but Somerset and Europa, I know, have Garnacha Blancas. All right, moving on to the 2 tongue twisters. Okay, you get to pronounce this one because I'm going to mess it up.
Verdelho and Verdejo.
Is it Verdelho or Verdelho?
So I was told it's Verdelho, but a lot of people pronounce it Verdelho. But I could be very wrong.
We could be very wrong about it. So you can come at us and correct us. That's fine. That's okay. We don't mind. Verdelho, this is you see this in Spain and Portugal, so right around where those 2 areas meet up, you're going to see a lot of that. It's citrusy, tropical hints, lime zest, slightly bitter finish, medium body, good acidity. So it's not unlike Albariño, but I think it misses that kind of sour note that at least the ones I've had. It's a little less on that like fruity sour spectrum than Albariño is. Usually stainless steel. It's also historically used to make Madeira wines. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so those are that's the base. Not for all of them, because there are different types of Madeiras. I'm supposed to know all this, but I don't really care because I don't drink Madeira, and not many people do. So you come at me again with that like hot take, but it's the base spirit or the base wine, and then it's put out in the barrels and left to exposure to heat, which I think is like a crazy method of making a wine, but that's how they go. It works. It's usually on its own. It's good for spicy cuisine and grilled fish, citrus, pork. You were only going to really find us at a couple of places, Mesilla de la Viña, which Shannon let me know that they might have discontinued that, and then Miramonte.
That Verdelho from Mesilla de la Viña, I think our very first episode. It was the one I blind tasted you on. It was delicious.
And I was so incorrect because I said it was the same as Verdejo.
We corrected ourselves later, though.
Did we? I don't know. I didn't get any emails, so I had to...
And then Verdejo is from Rueda, north central Spain. This white wine has a little green note to it. So it's lime, green apple, fennel. Sometimes you'll get those grassy characteristics, and even sometimes an almond finish with also high acidity. They do night harvesting there to preserve all of the aromatics, and so they pick all their grapes in the middle of the night. And then the winemaking style is stainless steel. Sometimes they'll do lees contact to bring in that texture. This would be really good paired with like tapas, just like a variety of food, grilled vegetables, seafood, manchego cheese, which is really big in that region. And a fun fact for Verdejo, this one is often compared to Sauvignon Blancs with a little bit more bitterness and more body.
Another interesting fun fact is that in Rueda, there are a lot of old vines of Verdejo. And hundreds of years, not hundreds of years, that's way too long, like over 100 years. So, and that creates a really kind of like concentrated wine. And they're not that expensive. You can find them in the U.S. for like $25, $30 for an old vine Verdejo. And that is pretty neat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that.
But that area itself is really hot in Spain, and it doesn't get a lot of rain, which is you don't get a lot of rain. That means the surviving vines have to dig really down deep to get the rain or the water that they need. But they also don't have the disease and the pest pressure, which would kill off the vines sooner. So in Galicia, which is where Albariño is typically grown, is right on the coastal. You have all these diseases, funguses, pests, all these different things you don't see a lot of old vine Albariño because the vines just can't live that long. But Verdejo, you do. And I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and I know Mesilla de la Viña used to do one. I don't know if they're still doing it.
And they have one here, so we might get to taste that next. We may not record it, but we'll taste it here. And then the last grape we're going to go through is Palomino. Now, Palomino is the main grape of sherry. So if you've ever had, your grandma's sweet old sherry, what do they call it? Cream sherry? There's the cream sherry, Bristol's cream sherry. Yeah, it's the same. That's what the Palomino goes into. Actually, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that does in Bristol's cream sherry. But that's the grape that's generally made in the whole sherry process. We're not going to go into that right now. But I did learn, and because it's generally low acidity, it's very neutral, has little really subtle apple and almond notes, and when it goes through the whole sherry process, it gets like olive oil. It's like olives and almonds and what's the one chemical, acetaldehyde, maybe? Is that the one I'm thinking of or something? It gets the whole like oxidative notes to it. It smells really funky, like a dry sherry. Number one is very dry. Yeah. And it's like really salty, minerally, and it has a certain like flavor to it.
It's hard to explain if you haven't had it.
We're not going to go into that. But we'll just say there is actually one producer here, and being Mount Palomar, that makes a dry Palomino wine. I think I had it, and it's been a few years, but if I went and checked my notes, I think my memory says it was kind of bland. Which would kind of fit that, like a dry style, the way I described. It's just sort of like bland, and then they do this whole wonderful process to it to make sherry, and they can make all kinds of sherries from super dry to super sweet. That's why. But you were saying, sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, I think I also was there at Mount Palomar a few years ago when I tasted it, because I think I was studying for my W set, and I was blown away that they had that.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so random.
Yeah. Yeah, now I could be wrong about my memory. I'd have to look at my notes, but I do remember it being kind of bland. All right, so that wraps up the white varietals. Before, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll be right back to cover some of the black grapes, talking Tempranillo, Garnacha, and many more. All right, and we are back. We're going to talk about the black grapes and the red wine varietals that are grown here in Temecula. But first, we want to backtrack a little bit. There are also a couple different white blends. People will typically do some the Garnacha Blanca and maybe some Chardonnay or Albariño and Viñedos, or a mix of different things. That's the Spaniards do like to do blends too. A lot of Rioja wines are actually blends. Like the white Riojas are blends of like Vieira and something else, and the Rioja reds are. For some producers is like Tempranillo makes the most of it up, but it also has a little bit of Mataro. Mataro is another name for Isn't so?
Yes.
Yes.
And then sometimes Carignan.
And sometimes Carignan.
But not typically
Carignan.
in Rioja.
But they have it. There's another name for Carignan too.
I know they call it Carignana.
Carignana.
But there is another name. Maybe that's a
well,
Mataro.
we're sidetracking too much. So you do see some Garnacha and Carignan and other varietals. And what's the other one? I'm trying to think of.
Garnacha,
man, I love that.
Tempranillo.
Oh gosh. Anyway, never mind. That's why we had it. Anyway, so Tempranillo typically comes out of Rioja, Ribeirão del Duero, Toro. You see in some other places too. This is kind of like, to me, when I was getting into it, everybody described it as Spain's Merlot. So it's not like Cabernet. It can be intense and be really full-bodied, but generally you get like cherry, plum, tobacco, leather. It's got like these medium to medium plus tannins. So you feel them, but they're not really heavy like in a Cabernet Sauvignon or say like a Bordeaux, where really heavy, a Cabernet-based Merlot, Bordeaux. And it's kind of got like this moderate acidity too that holds it together. You see this is also, the Spaniards do like American oak. There's a whole political reason why they didn't like bring in the French oak and use French oak. So it was cheaper for them, and geopolitics, they brought in American oak to use. So you see a lot of producers use American oak in Rioja to put Tempranillo in. You also see them use French oak, and sometimes you see them use both and combine them together for a blend. Typically, this is like mushrooms and lamb and barbecue and manchego cheese.
I did a really fun pairing for Tempranillo because Tempranillo is one of the grape varietals I did at one of my wine tasting nights. And I got a lot of the fresher styles. So I had a Crianza, I had a stainless steel Tempranillo, and we did, I did like a ratatouille pasta. So I had like bell peppers, onions, eggplant in a pasta with red sauce. It was delicious.
Yeah, I think of Tempranillo as very flexible with food. I haven't done podcasting in a while, so I can't talk. Think of Tempranillo as very flexible with food. It also is, because of the aging, they pre-age everything for you and release it when they think it's ready. So that's why you see Crianza is the least age, or second to least age. I think Joven was what they used to call like very little age, very little like time in the bottle, time in the barrel. Then there's Crianza. I forget how long they have to be. And then there's Reserva, and that just means that it has aged longer. And then you see Gran Reserva, and those are wines that have been aged like the minimum, I forget what the minimum requires, a couple years in the barrel and a couple years in bottle. And then if you get a certain producers will even age it longer than that before they release it. Same with Reservas. Some of them release it well beyond the kind of minimum requirements. So I was like that because as you kind of move down the aging line, your Grand Reservas are going to show like lots of like dried fruits and a lot more tobacco and leather and all the things that are really interesting. But if you don't like that, go for like a Crianza, which has the least amount of aging, more fruit, less oak, and you'll have a fresher style.
Yeah. I have a fun fact too.
Okay.
It's different than what you have here. Something I learned that I thought was really interesting is they used to mix Albariño in Tempranillo to give it acidity.
Oh.
I don't know if they do it anymore, but I think they used to put up to like 15%.
There is a mutation of Tempranillo called Tempranillo Blanca, and
yes, they
use that additionally in Rioja.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting, and I remember Joe from Lost Ranch Winery. One of his first wines he released was a Tempranillo Albariño blend, and I thought that was so cool.
Could you taste Could you tell any difference?
You know what? I don't know if I ever would have picked out that it had Albariño in it, but it was just so unique. I don't think I've ever had a wine like that before. It was fun.
Now, you will see Tempranillo, I would say, at 50% of the places here in the valley. So I'll just kind of run through them. Europa, Renzoni, Callaway, Danza, Footpath, Gershon Bacchus, Long Shadow Ranch, Maurice Carré, also known as Ultimate Vineyards now. I don't know what's going on there. I can't make up their mind. Altissima, South Coast, Monte d'Oro, Oak Mountain, Mesilla de la Viña, Raúl Ramirez, Miramonte, and Somerset. Just some of the names.
Lots of Tempranillo.
Lots of Tempranillo, yeah. People do like to work with it. It sells really well. When I worked in the wine shop, that was always one that I would go to if people wanted something that was like Cabernet Sauvignon, but not Cabernet Sauvignon and not Merlot. Kind of fits in between there somehow.
Yeah.
All right, what do we have next?
Heading into Garnacha, also known as Grenache. This is grown in Aragon, Priorat, and Rioja. Do you say Priorat or Priorat?
Priorat.
Somebody the other day was telling me it's Priorat.
Priorat.
Okay.
It could be Priorat.
It could
be.
Don't know. Okay. So Garnacha is grown in Aragon, Priorat, and Rioja. It's got a lot of red berry fruit. I typically get lots of cherry and strawberry with Garnacha. A little bit of white pepper. You'll get a little savory notes. It's typically higher alcohol and lower to moderate tannins. They do blend this to make kind of a GSM, Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre blend, but it can also be made into single varietals. And my favorite version of Spanish Garnacha is from Priorat with typically Carignan blended in. I would pair this with, I actually did a Garnacha night and we made veggie fajitas and it was delicious. So I would pair it with veggie fajitas. You could do burgers, grilled meats. And a fun fact, I feel like Grenache is kind of more well-known than Garnacha, but it's believed to have actually originated in Spain before going to France.
Yeah. It did. That's what they say. They traced it all back, whatever they do, and they did find out that was Garnacha was from that area of Spain. I love Spanish Garnacha. There's a lot of different styles. You can go in I think it's the Vinos de Grados, which is like close to Madrid, or Vinos de Madrid. And that style of Garnacha, there's a very old vine, so 100 plus years old. It's very Pinot Noir-like. Ooh. Very soft, very subtle, more acidity, picked a little bit earlier, and very savory. Oh. Like you would think of like Burgundian Pinot Noir being very savory. Or you could go to an area that's like hotter and has some old vines, but a much more like fruitier style Garnacha. And you also see like Garnacha Rosé. Is Rosato?
Rosado.
Or is it Rosado?
Rosado.
Rosado. Okay,
Italian,
Rosato is
Italian's
yes.
Rosato.
Yes, yeah, I'm about to find that out the hard way. So you see a lot of the rosés are made from Garnacha. They come out of Spain. We mentioned, I think, Mesilla de la Viña, Altissima, Raúl Ramirez, Miramonte, Europa. They are kind of labeling their Grenache as Garnacha. So they're more Spanish focused, I would say. But you will find Garnacha / Grenache everywhere.
Lost Ranch Winery has
Everywhere.
a really good Grenache.
Yeah.
So does Ace.
Yeah, a lot of places do have a nice Grenache, but I couldn't tell you. I think it's just a marketing speak from that point of view. But we will taste a Tempranillo and a Garnacha. And the next one we talk about, Monastrell, also known as Mourvèdre. Do you say Mourvèdre or Mourvèdre?
I used to say Mourvèdre, but I was told it's Mourvèdre.
Yep. Yes. The same Som that corrected you on your other pronunciations for
He was
Verdejo.
a stickler for pronunciation.
Yes. The pronunciation police, they come for you in the wine industry. And the wine industry doesn't understand why it has problems. I don't know. Very crazy. Anyway, so Monastrell. So this is grown generally where it's very hot in Spain. So Jumilla, Yecla, Alicante. You get a lot of darker fruit. It comes out really jammy, in my opinion. It's earthy, spicy, very kind of like firm tannins. You feel the tannins, you feel the weight. Very full-bodied, like high alcohol. Everyone I've ever had that I've liked is like you flip the label and it's like drinking a Zinfandel from here in the States. So a little high alcohol. the thing about Mourvèdre, and specifically Monastrell, does well is because you actually need a long, hot growing season. So there's a lot of Mourvèdre here in the valley, and then the only ones that kind of will take the Monastrell angle to it, again, marketing, Raúl Ramirez, of course, Mesilla de la Viña and Altísima. Okay. So in my fun fact notes, Mataro is another name for Monastrell in Australia. But I swear you do see Mataro in areas of Spain. I think the Basque area, they like to call it Mataro.
I feel like that sounds right.
If it's not, we just declared that as fact, because that's how the world works now.
Yeah,
we say something and it's fact. Anyway, so this is really something that's meant for like meats, like just meat in general, charred meat, stewed meat, braised meat,
anything
grilled
smoky,
meat, burgers, smoky. Yeah, it works for that. And our last red wine is gonna be
Mencía, also pronounced Mencía.
Mencía, yes.
It's grown in Bierzo, which is a little region just east of Rías Baixas, and also Ribera Sacra, which is kind of the northwest Spain area. You'll get a lot of notes of red cherry, some floral notes, graphite, really bright acidity. It's a very fresh and juicy, like medium-bodied wine. They often plant Mencía at elevation, so you can see a lot of whole cluster fermentation, giving a lot of aromatics to the wine. The versions I've had, I don't want to compare it to Beaujolais because it's not a whole lot of carbonic flavor, but it's just very juicy and fruit forward and easy to drink. I think if you're new to wine and you want a lighter red, this is a good one to go for.
Yeah, I think on the little sheet that I put together here, I think the best comparison is pretty appropriate. It's like a Pinot Noir and Cabernet Franc. And maybe
I like that.
Gamay all got together and made some weird grape called Mencía. And you got to say it like that too, Mencía.
Mencía.
With the TH in the middle instead of the curly C. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would pair that that's a perfect picnic wine, charcuterie, sandwiches, roasted vegetables. You could even do like roast duck or roast chicken.
And we have one producer in Temecula.
We do?
Yeah. You had one. You told me you had a bottle of from Miramonte.
Oh, I did. Yes, from Miramonte. Oh my gosh, my brain. Yes, I have.
We had a 3-month break. Give us a break. It was a long. So, I actually look forward to tasting that wine. That would be one to do a fun review for. Right? I mentioned that earlier, just in our text back and forth. But I'm interested in that wine. So maybe I leave here. I'll pick one up and try it. Short pour. We should.
Yeah.
All right, and then beyond that, you do see a lot of red blends. Of course, Tempranillo generally will make up the most of that like blend, but you see the Garnacha mixed in with that. Raúl Ramirez has one on their menu that is, I'm looking now, it's Tempranillo, Garnacha, Monastrell, and then Petit Syrah, which does pretty good here in Temecula, and then Malbec. So you will see that at a few places. Altísima does a lot of blends. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to taste, probably we'll do the Tempranillo, I think, live on here, and then we'll taste some other wines too.
Cheers.
All right, we are back at Raúl Ramirez tasting their, I think, is this the 2021 or the 2022 Estate Tempranillo Reserva? Might be the 21. We're not entirely sure which vintage it is, but what'd you think of? We also just had the 22 Reserve Garnacha and the 22 Reserve Monastrell to kind of compare this to. Off the bat, the first thing I noticed is a little bit darker color than the other wines, a little more deeper, and aromatically, it's not quite as intense as the last two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very subtle, and on the nose, I kind of get a lot of more dried fruit than maybe I'd expect.
Yeah.
Some savory notes to it, but on the palate, it's very fruit forward.
It is, yeah. Lots of like black and red fruits, like a mix of it. And the tannin structure, to my point earlier, is it being the Merlot of Spain. It's not quite as heavy in alcohol. I'd say the last one we had, the Monastrell, had a lot of alcohol to it. At least it tasted like it did. And then the tannins these are much more refined and grainier tannins too. Not super grainy, but like a refined grain. I think of like Sangiovese. We always talk about how fine grain tannins is kind of the same boat. And what do you think of the finish on this?
I think the like those cherry notes kind of stick around a little bit. It's got some nice acidity, actually.
It does, yeah. Some roasted notes to it too.
Yeah.
There's a nuttiness to it, I think, as well.
A little bit of
like crushed,
cedar.
Cedar and light toast, and that's a really nice wine.
Yeah.
I think I like it much better on the palate than maybe the nose. And it's kind of come along a little bit. I think when we tried the Garnacha and the Monastrell, those were really
very aromatic.
Yes, very flashy wines. Yeah. Especially the Garnacha was like this big fruity, fruit bomb, syrupy, delicious in its own right. And then the same with the Monastrell, also had a lot of juicy cherry fruit. This is a more, I don't know what you would say, something to sit and think about, kind of like wine.
It's changed with each sip we've had too, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think it's improving too with some air to it. Of course, most of these wines will. But yeah, really, really nice experience. All in all, we just want to thank Raúl Ramirez for having us in here today, and hopefully you've picked up a few new things to try in and about Temecula Valley. Like we said, we don't know every single wine that everybody produces around here, and it changes from vintage to vintage too. And sometimes that's just because a producer has access to other grapes, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes you have good vintages for a wine or for the grapes, and sometimes you don't. So thank you again for listening to us. I don't know how to wrap this up. We haven't wrapped up an episode. Yes,
I know. It's just good to be back.
We'll have to not have 3 months between shows next time. So, just check out social media. Shannon's going to post some stuff on there, some photos. And what do we say? Cheers.
Cheers.